Hello, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everyone. Welcome back for another Ask WHO Social Media Live Q&A session. My name is Ganawit Deshpanyawat. I work in the Department of Communications at WHO headquarters, and I'll be your host for today's special session of Ask WHO. If you follow us on social media or if you are a big fan of WHO, you know we celebrate World Food Safety Day on the 7th of June every year. And that's why we're here today ahead of World Food Safety Day 2022, which happens tomorrow. We're here today to talk about food safety, how to keep your food safe, debunk some common myths slash misunderstanding, and of course, to get some of your questions answered by our experts. And it is my great pleasure to have with us in the program today Simone Rezol. She is a WHO scientist specializing in food safety, and another guest from FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, Jeff Lejeune, a food safety specialist. Welcome both. How are you doing?
Hi, hello everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you all to share our thoughts and our knowledge on food safety.
Hello, Jeff.
Hello from the FAO headquarters in Rome. I'm pleased to be here and join you today.
Great. All right, Simon and Jeff. To kick off our conversation today, how about you tell our viewers about this particular day tomorrow on the 7th of June, World Food Safety Day? What is the theme of this year, World Food Safety Day? What is the focus and why is it important to all of us? Simone, please.
Okay, so the World Food Safety Day is a day that was created in 2018. And why it's important? Because we still need to raise awareness on the topic. Food safety is a health, foodborne diseases is a health issue that is not too many times considered by member states, by countries, and by health sectors. So we needed to raise awareness. We needed to engage all stakeholders because it's not only a government issue, but we needed to engage food industries and we needed to engage the civil society, including the consumers, to know more about the issue.
Thank you. Jeff, maybe can you tell us what is the theme of this year? What's special
I
about
can
this
I
year?
can chime in here
Yeah.
today. Food safety, everyone's business. Food Safety Day is a day that we set aside specifically to remember this and to celebrate the achievements. In fact, though, every day is Food Safety Day. We need to make sure food is safe every day of the year, but we're setting aside this day so that we can particularly pay attention to this and draw awareness to the subject.
All right. Thank you very much for a sweet introduction. Before I get back to both of you with more questions, I'd like to welcome our amazing fans and viewers who are joining us from all corners of the world as usual. Today's topic is about food safety on the occasion of World Food Safety Day 2022, which is tomorrow on the 7th of June. To ask your question on Twitter, use hashtag AskWHO. And those of you who are watching on Facebook, simply leave your question in the comment section. We have a whole team working behind the scene and creating your questions for us. I know you might have already mentioned here and that earlier on, Simon, Jeff. Perhaps you could elaborate more about unsafe food. So the question is, what are the direct impacts of unsafe food on consumers, and who is the most vulnerable if food safety isn't there? I'm going to give this question to Jeff and Simone. If you have anything to add, please feel free to compliment.
Thanks. We want to make sure that food doesn't cause any illness or sickness among people. So therefore, food that is unsafe are those that could potentially cause a microbial infection, a chemical intoxication, or something like that. So we want to make sure that food is safe because it has health implications. It also has trade implications. We want to make sure that food that is traded and sold doesn't make the consumers or the buyers sick as well.
Simone?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question, and it's important to everyone to know that every year 1 in 10 people will fall ill because of foodborne disease or unsafe food. And the most important that the topic that you asked, it's about the most vulnerable. So most 1/3 of the people who got sick because of foodborne or unsafe food are children under 5. So these are the most at risk. We also have the elderly and people with some immunocompromised conditions that can affect their response to the contaminants in food. Um, we have over 200 diseases that can be caused by food. So there's a lot that we need to learn and to protect ourselves, and especially the most vulnerable, including the children, the elderly, those with other health condition, and also the people with, for example, who live in poverty, who are undernourished. They are also among the most vulnerable.
If I could
Well,
chime in there
yeah.
and just to elaborate a little bit, food safety concerns are a concern for everyone, but we're particularly concerned about those who live in low and middle income countries where their food control systems may not be as strong and their health care may not be as strong as well. Those people are at particular risk for foodborne illness.
All right, thank you. All right, I saw some nice questions popping up now on the screen. Before we take the first one, I would like to ask one more question. I think for Simone to add a public health perspective to what Jeff just said. So, can you tell us, Simone, what are the impacts of foodborne diseases on public health in general?
Yeah, there are so many impacts of foodborne diseases on public health, and some of them are related to not only acute cases like diarrhea that we already everybody knows about foodborne diseases, but it's important to know that some health impacts can be related to cancer. There are some contaminants in food that can cause very severe diseases, like conditions like cancer, and can also cause death of people. There's also the impact on the health system, especially in the moment that in the situation we are living now with a pandemic going on and many other emerging diseases happening. Having outbreaks for foodborne diseases can also burden and overcharge the health system. So it's really important because if we consider foodborne diseases, they are preventable. So it's not acceptable that we have people dying because of foodborne disease, uh, because we can prevent, we can avoid the issues if we take very simple measures at home or when preparing food in a restaurant, in a commercial kitchen, or in a company. There are some good hygiene practices that we need to take care, that we need to adopt, and that will help us to reduce the risks of foodborne diseases and we reduce the impact in the health system.
Thank you, Simone. And thank you, everyone, for sending in your questions. I'm seeing the first question here. A viewer who's watching us is asking, what exactly can we do to keep our food safe? Jeff, please.
Great. Thanks for that question. That's the real question at stake here is what can we do to keep our food safe? And the question is we, who is we? That could be anyone, the consumers, food processors, people that grow the food, people who collect the food. So everybody has a role and everybody's role is different. And I think working together, we can make the food safer because food contaminants can enter the food chain anywhere from production to consumption. So, working at the farm, making sure that the inputs, the farm, the fertilizers, the irrigation water is clean, the animals are healthy, that the food is processed under hygienic practices and distributed is to keep it from getting contaminated, and all the way to the consumer, washing the hands and keeping the food clean, the kitchen clean. Those are some steps that people can play all along the food chain.
Thank you. Anything to add, Simone?
Yeah. I just to add to what Jeff said, I think it's very important to think about the changes we need to promote and not wait for someone to make the change. We have to consider the changes that are happening in the food system, climate change, the way we are eating, the way we are producing the food are changing, and we needed to be prepared to work on that, to react to those changes. So it's everyone's business. It's really everyone's business, and we needed to start making the change. Everyone can do that without waiting for others to start or to make the change that we want.
Thank you. All right. We have another interesting question. Actually, there's a couple of people who are watching us sending in the same question. So we have Kangsho, Rabav, and Abu who are watching us on Facebook. They are asking, what is the relationship between food security and food safety? Or what is the difference between the two?
If you don't mind, I'll chime in there.
Yep.
These words are often confused, and people don't know what the difference is. When we talk about food security, we're talking about having enough food that is nutritious and safe for all people at all time. So, in that definition, we included food that is safe. So, if the food is not safe, then there is no food security. Food safety, on the other hand, is ensuring that that food is free from contaminants that might make someone ill or unhealthy. So that's the main difference. Food safety is a component of food security.
Simone, anything to add?
No, that was
No,
perfect,
that's
Jeff.
perfect. All right. Okay. Thank you very much both for your answer. While our team slide in some more questions from our viewers, and before we move forward with the questions, I think let's do something fun and let's debunk some common myths or misunderstanding about food safety. Well, Simone and Jeff, I have a list of common myths here on my screen. I'm going to read them one by one, and perhaps one of you could respond to each with a yes or a no and give us some explanation. Does that work for you?
Sounds good.
Good. All right.
Maybe you let some time for people who is watching us to also to respond
Yes.
and go
All right.
later. That would be
Okay.
funny.
Yep. All right. I have the first myth here. Well, I'm gonna start off with you, Simone, maybe, or maybe Jeff. Let's start with Jeff. What do you say if someone tells you that we can tell if food is safe to eat or consume by its look and smell?
I'm just waiting for people to weigh in there. I think certainly sometimes there's food that looks bad and smells bad and you wouldn't want to eat it, but that's not always the case. This is definitely a myth. Um, Microorganisms and chemicals that contaminate food and make people ill can't be seen with the naked eye, and they don't always cause an off odor or off smell. So I wouldn't use my nose or my eyes to judge food safety. I would rather prefer, based on a risk-based approach to someone else, inspecting and in confirming and acting to make the food safe all along the food chain. That's definitely a myth.
Okay. All right. Well, this is fun. So the next myth, well, Simone will help us debunk, is if we drop food on the floor, it is okay to eat if you picked it up within 5 minutes.
Let's see if people is answering. And the answer is
Yeah.
definitely no, it's not safe. You mentioned 5 minutes, but even if it's a few seconds, it's not safe. So, and especially you have to consider if it's you're in a street, you don't know which what's the number of microorganisms or contaminants that can be in the floor. So, if the food drops down to the floor, it's not safe to eat. It's not. So, it's a myth that it's safe if you take it. There's the meat of the rule of 3 or 5 seconds. So no, it's not safe. If the food drops down to the floor, it's not safe to eat. There's a lot of contaminants, a lot of potentially pathogens that can contaminate the food. Don't eat, please.
Well, as we always say, if it's not safe, it's not food, right? So next stop, what do you say, Jeff, if someone tells you it's safe to thaw frozen food at room temperature?
These are really good questions you're asking, because a lot of people ask these things and it seems to make sense. But in reality, taking frozen food and bringing it to a room temperature where it warms up very slowly, that's when bacteria really like to grow. If you want to know what makes bacteria happy, you add warm temperatures, some nutrients, a little bit of water, and they go like gangbusters. So even if there was even very few bacteria to start with on that food, over the course on the surface of that food, which can warm up very fast, the surface itself would be at room temperature almost immediately. Those things can grow to levels that can make you really sick really fast. So the answer is no. You should thaw food in cold water or in a refrigerator so that these bacteria can't grow during the thawing process.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Jeff. So I have the last myth here. Simone, do fruits and vegetables need to be washed before eating?
Let's see what people who's watching us think about.
Let's see.
Yeah,
Maybe there's some
definitely
delay.
yes. Definitely yes. We need to wash well fruits and vegetables, even that if they say that they are ready to eat. So you never know. So you're not sure how they were washed, or if they were washed. So it's a very prudent before you eat to wash well fruits and vegetables. To make sure they are free of major contaminants that can be on the surface, and to wash them using a running water. It's the best way to wash fruits and vegetables.
All right. Thank you so much, both. That's a very useful information. And
Running potable water.
yes. All right. Just a reminder for all of you who just joined us. Our program today is on food safety ahead of World Food Safety Day tomorrow on the 7th of June. We have Simone and Jeff, food safety experts from WHO and FAO, respectively. They are here to answer your questions. You can send over your questions or anything that you wanted to share with us using hashtag AskWHO on Twitter, and leave your questions in the comment section if you are watching us on Facebook. So here are quite a few questions coming in now. The next question I will pick is pretty interesting. It's from Sue Misner, watching us from Facebook. Uh, how can food expiration dates be mandated to be written larger and more legible on food items? Please.
Do you want to go, Simone?
Up to
Uh,
you.
okay, I'll give this a go. Maybe we can do it together. Um, so as opposed to mandating larger font, maybe just like maybe glasses would help a lot of readers to see this. The whole idea of food expiration dates are not really that the food expires on a certain date, but maybe it has a better food quality or shelf life, and possibly some safety issues if you keep food for a long time. So it's not really the idea that the food expires. I think people need to take into account that the food is maintained and stored properly so it doesn't receive contamination, or the bacteria that are there don't proliferate and grow, because sometimes food can go bad before the expiry date, if you will, that's on the label. So you need to make sure that the food is stored and maintained properly and handled properly and then cooked properly. So it's really not completely about the expiration date, but about safe food handling practices.
All right. Simone, maybe you could add the five key.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think it's just to add to what Jeff said. Yeah, it's important to consider the way the food was produced, the way it was kept until it is time to eat. But yeah, it's really important to know to read the information in the label, especially if you are allergic to something. I think it's very much important to be aware of what was used to produce that food, and that if that can harm you, because it's not only food contaminants, but the allergens are also an important thing. There's also related to other diseases, like if you are diabetic or if you have a high blood pressure, you also need to be aware if that food can contain some ingredients that can be harmful for your health. So it's I think labeling is a very much important topic, because it's not only about contamination but also about which other components are in that food that could be potentially harmful for you, depending on your personal conditions, right? Um, so and regarding the five keys as was provoked here, yeah, it's they're the five simple messages, key message that we use to share, that everyone can apply at home, or if you work in the food industry, if you're a food handler, anywhere, that you can use to uh, reduce the risk of contamination and to make a hygienic food production. And it's related to having your hands clean, to washing properly your hands before you were working with the food, to keep the food at right temperatures, to use good ingredients, to cook properly, and to avoid contamination, the cross contamination. That's when you work it, for example, with a raw meat, and then you use the same surface to work with a raw vegetable that will be used for a salad, for example. So you cook the meat, and then you kill the contaminants that could be there, but that will not happen with the salad. That's what we call cross contamination. I hope someone is putting the link for the five keys on the chat. If not, we can share later.
Yes.
But there are very simple measures that everyone can take.
All right. So I just going to repeat what Simone just said. The five keys to safer food. First is keep clean. Second, it's separate raw and cooked food. Third is cook thoroughly. Fourth is keep food at safe temperatures. And the last one is use safe water and raw materials. And Simone, I have a quick question from Jessica watching us from Facebook. You just mentioned we need to wash fruit and vegetables with water, right? She asks, what if the water is not safe to be used to wash fruits and vegetables? Do we have any other alternatives?
Yeah, great question, Jessica. Thanks. We know that there are some places that the potable water is also not easy to have. So if you don't have potable water to do that, you can take two actions. Or you can peel the fruits before you eat, or depending on which kind of vegetable you were considering, you can cook them. So these are two other alternative ways that you can take to avoid contamination from the surface of fruits and vegetables, or peel or cook.
Great. All right. Here's another question from one of our viewers watching us on Twitter, Cornelia, asking, why is antimicrobial resistance a food safety concern? Maybe I will give this to Jeff.
All right, thank you. Yes, indeed. We hear a lot about antimicrobial resistance. And the problem is that if people become infected with antimicrobial resistant organisms, they can't be treated as well. The issue is that foods can be contaminated with bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. And therefore, if you acquire an infection that way, it's possible that you may not be able to be treated. So the other issue is that the genes themselves responsible for antimicrobials resistance could be transferred to in bacteria to the food, and we consume those, and the bacteria are fairly promiscuous, if you will, and they will exchange those genes, and uh, bacteria that is formerly sensitive to an antimicrobial can become resistant, whether it be in the food production environment, the food processing environment, or even in the gastrointestinal tract of people. So it's definitely a problem. There have been a number of outbreaks of foodborne illnesses associated with antimicrobial resistant bacteria.
Thank you, Jeff. Um, I'm gonna pick a couple of questions here that I'm seeing. Another interesting question is from a viewer on Facebook, Anwar. His question is: we know chicken today treated by some chemical materials. Is that safe for our food?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
So he said chicken
Chicken. Yeah, yeah.
treated by some chemical material, by some chemical substances, is that safe for our food? To be our food, to eat, to consume?
Do you want me to take this, Jeff?
Uh, what, I can chime in to start, and then you can finish off. I
Yeah.
think we have international standards for food safety in terms of chemical residues and things that can be used, and so it depends on what the chemical is that is being used and whether it is safe. So I guess that's my first question: is depending upon what is being used. Water is a chemical. Treating food with water is typically considered safe, but there are other chemicals that maybe wouldn't be so safe to use. Over.
Yeah, I would do the same question. I would say the same comment, depending on the chemical, right? So, and depending how it was used. At some points, you do need to use some veterinary drugs to treat animals if they have some disease. But then, if you use the correct product under the supervision of a veterinarian, if you respect the amount of that drug, and then if you respect the time until the slaughter of the chicken, so you follow the rules, and then it's safe. But it also, again, depending on the dog and on the chemical and how it was used in the chicken production.
If I can just chime in here, these standards are established by the Codex Alimentarius, and WHO and FAO together have a number of scientific committees which look at the risk and the evidence that a certain chemical or a certain microbe, for that matter, or a drug residue would cause harm if it's in the food. And that these are reported in documents that are presented to Codex Alimentarius, and they take those science and that evidence into consideration when they're establishing these international standards. Over.
Thank you very much. All right. I think so far we covered pretty much some of the most important questions, and you may have mentioned here and there already, Jeff and Simone. The slogan of World Food Safety Day is "Food safety is everyone's business," and I think people might be keen to know more. Perhaps one of you or both of you could tell us what do we mean exactly when we say food safety is everyone's business. Perhaps you could tell us what could be the role of the general consumers or the general public in this.
I can start. I
Yeah.
think in terms of taking the perspective of the consumers, it's also your role to request and to ask for information when you buy the food, to check if the product has all the information it should have in the label, if it's on the proper temperature, if it says in the package that fruit should be frozen, for example, if it was kept under frozen temperature in the grocery or in the place of where you're buying. So and then when you're at home, so using the 5 keys and handling properly this food when you are preparing this food at home, it's also your role, and nobody will be able to do that for you. So that's why we used to say it's everyone's business, and it's also part of the consumer's business as well.
Jeff, you have anything to add?
Yeah, Simone mentioned the role of consumer. I think I want to go back and the other players in the field. As a veterinarian, I think as a profession, we know a lot of things, but we don't know everything. And we need other people in other professions to play a role in food safety. Nutrition, for example, there's a link between nutrition and food safety that Simone mentioned. People that are undernourished are more likely to get a foodborne infection, and those with foodborne infection can't absorb nutrients. So, having a nutritionist play a role, food scientists, engineers, epidemiologists, physicians in medicine, there's all kinds of people that need to play a role in food safety. So, I think everybody has a role to play. It's everyone's business.
All right. Thank you. I think we are running out of time now. Before we close our live session today, perhaps I'll go to Simone first and then Jeff. Perhaps could you tell us about WHO and FAO's response or role in ensuring food safety globally? What could we expect of food safety in the years to come?
Yeah. So we just had our World Health Assembly, and we recently adopted a new WHO global strategy for food safety. It is a new document that will shape the food control systems. We worked closely with FAO to develop this document with the World Animal Health Organization and with extensive consultations with national authorities and with public in general. We came up with a new document that aims to strengthening national food control systems, taking this multi-sectoral approach, the One Health, and to include all the stakeholders to improve the safety of the food and to reduce the burden of foodborne diseases. I think this will mark our work in the future, taking this innovative approach and working closely with all the international organizations that are related to food safety.
Thank you, Simone and Jeff. What do we expect from FAO about food safety?
Yeah, I would just like to emphasize that FAO as well has launched a new food safety strategy. Again, we're emphasizing, oops, make sure you see this hashtag. We're emphasizing a One Health approach again, where everybody has a role to play. It's everyone's business. And in the future, I see a stronger food safety system around the globe with fewer foodborne illnesses and increased trade and economic prosperity because of increasing food safety, primarily because of the increased collaboration and the actual activities to combat contaminated food. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff and Simone. So I just want to reiterate, each person has a role to play. Whether you grow, you process, transport, store, you sell, you buy, you prepare, or you serve food, food safety is in our hands. All right, if you want to learn more about WHO work and FAO work around food safety and safe food practices, please visit our website, www.who.int, or FAO website, www.fao.org, or our social media channels. Tomorrow we will publish lots of content around food safety across our digital platforms. Please stay tuned. And thank you everyone for tuning in from all over the world. Thank you for celebrating and supporting food safety with us. And thank you, Simone and Jeff, for taking the time to talk to us today.
You're welcome. Join the
Thank
discussion.
you, everyone.
Please stay tuned and follow us if you haven't already on our social media platform for upcoming activities. But for now, as I already mentioned, if it's not safe, it's not food. And if you love food, please keep your food safe and stay healthy. Bye bye. Until next time.